Yeah, I think open communication is one of the absolute keys to it. Knowing what your child is doing for a parent, and knowing so the child knows what they're doing is absolutely key. I think open discussion about issues is absolutely key to this as well. Young people are very resilient, but they need guiding in the right way. And if actually, for example, I have seen those that express concerns even suspended. But I think the key to it is actually making sure that the clubs listen and actually involve children. Many good clubs have actually got actually one or two children actually bring forward ideas from the youngsters themselves, from various squads, etc. They might have squad representatives. So it's a communication between the children. The youngsters just don't attend a club and swim and come away. They're actually interacting with their peers all the time. They're interacting with the coaches, and that communication can be really, really good. If there's a particular issue, as we've seen within various clubs, of course, then a really positive way in which to deal with that is actually get the club together, get a squad together if it's squad related, get a group of children together and actually positively discuss it. Say, these are the expectations of behaviour. This is how we expect you to treat each other, and actually be positive. They want to enjoy it, and actually it's giving them the ability to talk about how they can best enjoy the sport and actually attend, etc. So it's kind of part education of them, part encouragement to talk, and getting them involved and listening to them. So that is really key to me.
I think helping parents. When we get a lot of swimmers, parents come to us and they just, we're sort of a non-biased body, if you like, of what we do, and the parents can have that conversation openly with us about. We get all the time asked about training volumes. How much should my daughter be swimming? How many meters in a week? And is it right to do this? Is it right to do that? Is it wrong to do this? Is it wrong to do that? It's just being able to have that conversation and helping the parents understand that some coaching philosophies are like this, some coaching philosophies like this. There's no right or wrong. It's understanding and helping educating the parents is really, really important. I'm also passionate about supporting the coaches. The coaches have a pretty tough job, especially in swimming clubs. The more support that we give the coaches, the more tools we give the coaches, then the more they're likely to carry on coaching and enjoy their coaching. One of the hardest thing I think in club coaching is being able to get support, and that's really, really key. And I think that's something that we've just got to keep moving forward. It's got a lot better, but I think it's really important that we help support the coaches.
It's important to recognise that you can change your psychology, you can change your reactions, and you can change your response to a lot of the thoughts you have. I think something that comes up a lot, excuse me, I think when we speak with swimmers, with sports people in general, they often come and speak to us as almost a last resort. This has been happening for such a long time, and this is almost the final throw of the dice. And a common pattern that emerges is that individuals feel like they're stuck. They're stuck with this brain that's always going to be negative and create these negative responses and always hold them back. But a very important thing to recognize is that you can change your responses. You're not stuck. It's just patterns, right? The reason you think you've stuck is because a pattern has been repeating itself for so long that it feels like it's going to be forever. But you can ultimately change your responses. And sports psychology, speaking to a psychologist in general, whether that's about your performance or whether that's about your mental health, is framed very, very wrongly. Shall we say that, speaking to a psychologist isn't a weakness, actually speaking to a sport and performance psychologist is a huge strength, as it shows that you're willing to put in the work, willing to make the changes that are very difficult, but are ultimately going to be very rewarding.
I suppose fairly easy to deal with externally exhibited behaviour. Part of the advice given is actually to be able to speak to a child, during, if you've got, somebody even committing, even criminal behaviour within clubs. Well, the key is actually try to understand and educate. And that for me is absolutely key, because you're not going to help that child actually prevent those issues just by dealing with it in a certain way. So there will be different ways in which you can deal with that. But the key to it is actually understanding and speaking to that child and giving that child the opportunity to say, well, actually, this is going on, or that's going on, and this is the reason I did it. And if you can support and educate that child while still making the environment safe for everyone else, because that's another key factor to it. So it is a balance, but certainly listening to the child and actually supporting the child to understand the consequences of the actions, and they might be a very short kind of consequence, but actually longer term potentially that could assist. Certainly, I've had ways in which I've dealt with certain criminal acts committed by children, but there's still a recognition actually they are children, and once certain processes are dealt with, then it's really good to try to educate them in a way in which they can be supported and actually make everyone safer around the whole club, etc. So
elite athletes at that level need to have it. They need to have somebody. The club needs to provide somebody who would talk regularly to these kids to find out what is going on. I think that's really important, because these are kids that spend all their time in school or they're in games. They don't spend too much time just being at home. So there has to be somebody who is trained to notice these things. I don't think it's a gray area, And even if they say, okay, we don't have too much money, they'll find people like me that'll be happy to volunteer. I can bet that. There are lots of people that work in mental health who want to give back and will be able to provide services to volunteer, So I don't think that should be a problem.
Sport varies. I've actually been, significantly encouraged also by working with some of the smaller sports. Some of them have got, a true set of guidance so that what is expected. Like a child should be welcome to the club. They should be encouraged to partake in the club. Whilst everyone should be encouraged to protect a child. That they're appropriately treated whilst they're at the club, and also respected as children, because they've got everyone is a child, and every child has got their own views, their own feelings, their own experiences, and to respect those and listen to those is absolutely key. So to reinforce the good work that many are doing around clubs, I would support that.
Sports psychology is hugely important, and it's a massively growing industry, and there's good reason for that, because people are recognizing now that ultimately psychology is the difference between a podium and being last in the race, right? It's so important to be able to manage and deal with the pressure that you get put under, and it's just that sports psychology is a critical aspect of high performance.
Without good mental health, it will be difficult to have good physical health. It's as important, just like the way that if you have a child who's an athlete, you pay attention to the diet, you encourage them to exercise. That is the same way we should be encouraging them to have good mental hygiene. Just as they have good physical hygiene, they have to have good mental hygiene, which is knowing how to take care, keep your mental health clean. It is really, really vital. Just like because I've brushed my teeth today, doesn't mean that I won't brush it tomorrow. The same way mental health has to be taken care of every single day. I mean, if I, with over 20 years experience working in mental health, need to take care of my mental health, I need to apply, I need to relearn things. Everybody needs to. Every kid needs to. And kids that are in the high pressure world of competitive sports, competitive swimming, they need to. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of providing good mental health care support for these kids?
I think clubs are really, really good at being resourceful. And actually, if they see an issue, then it's to be dealt with. For me, and if they were to receive guidance, guidance from national governing bodies can take time. And of course, the guidance necessarily won't be specifically won't specifically apply to that particular set of circumstances. Every case we get in, every issue has its own nuances. They're all slightly different. And I think if the club reacts to that with guidance, but with guidance perhaps from the safeguarding team, but if the club reacts to it, that is far, far better than waiting for perhaps months and months and months for there to be guidance or legislation passed down by national governing bodies. The circumstances around a child that needs reacting to, and it's not something that should be waited. It should be awaiting guidance by the national governing bodies. So, as long as the right advice is given, then the clubs could have confidence to act.
Bill Shankly, the former Liverpool football manager, famously said that football was actually more important than life and death. It's also I totally disagree with, and I think for far too long in sport, we focused on medals and success rather than the welfare and the well-being of our athletes. That is wrong. It always has been wrong. Sport is there to enjoy, and it's supposed to be pleasurable. It's supposed to be a good thing, good for society, good for the individuals involved. The success, the medals must always be secondary to that. We need to protect our athletes because without them, there is no sport.
And ultimately, what we're trying to do with all mental health for the children is, for the swimmers, is just help them understand and start the conversations and help them with their, not just being so outcome driven and focus on the processes. So, but I'm pretty optimistic. I think we've, like I said, I don't want to repeat myself, but I think we're starting to understand a little bit more about what we need to do. From this conversation today, if it helps one person, it helps one person. If it helps more, then it's really, really positive, I think.
Thank you, Andrea. I hope that my experiences and advice helps any young swimmers and parents out there.